Hey guys, welcome back. So a couple of things today. We're gonna go over the essential questions for the week, which is more the new thing. I'll go over that last column for navigating the story, just in case anyone needs directions for that. And then I'm gonna go over that regrading form again one more time for you guys so you kind of know how that works. So by now you've probably heard the news that we are going to be doing digital learning for the rest of the year. So I've got some mixed feelings about that. My first response was one of relief, if I'm being honest, and that is more because I was worried that we would be asked to go back to school a little bit too soon before it was safe. And I was worried that if we went back to school, that we would all be risking our health essentially. So I am glad, I think this is a safer decision. And this way we know that we have a little bit of control over our health to a certain extent. So I hope that everyone is staying home for the most part and being safe and as healthy and well. And downside of all of this is I won't be able to see you guys' faces in person by the end of the school year, so that sucks. But hopefully I'll see you guys pop into Friday Google Meets every so often. I can say hi there. We'll just do the best that we can. So knowing that digital learning is going to be happening for the rest of the year, though, if there are things that you find are working really well with doing online learning, whether it's the way that Google Classroom is organized or whatever it is, things that you feel like are working for you, please let me know if you haven't already. I do know that these week at a glance slideshows seem to be working pretty well. Most people are utilizing those, which is awesome. So I've gotten some feedback from some people that said that they liked it and they want me to keep doing it. So that's good enough for me. So I will continue with the week at a glance. If there are other things that are working out really well, let me know. There's some things that I have to post, like attendance assignments and instruction videos for the week and stuff, but other things are kind of flexible. So I've got a couple of teachers in my classrooms, and so I did get some positive feedback from another teacher that said she really liked how we kind of bundle everything together for the week, so it's all there in one place. So that was good to hear that from her. So I will likely kind of continue doing that. I think it works well for everybody doing stuff week by week. Hopefully. So that being said, if there are things that are like absolutely not working for you, like you're struggling with the organization of things or whatever, let me know. There are some things, like I said, I've got some control over. And I will consider all feedback that is given. So I can't make everybody happy, and I can't set up Classroom to where it works perfectly for everybody, but I can try to do my best to meet as many people's needs as possible. So anyway, so I might create a Google form maybe and kind of ask for some feedback or give you the option to give some feedback. I might end up doing that maybe for Friday. It's not like an assignment or anything, but just kind of an optional feedback sort of thing would be nice. So anyway, let me know what you think. Positives, negatives, whatever. So I can consider everything as I start making plans for next week. So next week I'll probably we're going to kind of switch gears. Obviously, this week we're finishing up our books and we're going to be done with that, which is awesome. I have no idea what the plan is for getting your books officially turned in to Miss Sterrett. That's Miss Sterrett question. So made me kind of figure out how that will work. But anyway, so we're gonna switch gears next week and switch to some argument stuff. I've got a few potentially fun things planned for us that hopefully you'll find kind of engaging. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, I think that's kind of, those are the highlights and the weird, strange. This is a weird time that we're living in. So, so let's just look at a week at a glance. The week at a glance, we'll go through this. Obviously everything for the week has been posted or scheduled. Your attendance assignment is scheduled to be pushed out tomorrow, even though it's Wednesday right now. It's technically today is Tuesday, but I'm recording this for Thursday. But your attendance assignment will get pushed out a day before the day. So anyway, you only see the stuff that is in green. So you've got let's just go the week at a glance. We'll talk through this. All right. So for Thursday, here we are. So watch today's video. Complete the attendance assignment. We'll pop in here real quick and look at that. So the background's a little bit different because this is how I know the difference between all my days. Check yourself in. I still have people that are clicking on the wrong class period. So please click on the correct class period. Summarize what you're supposed to be doing for today. And then because we finished our book, or you should have finished your book, tell me initial thoughts. What did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Were you just kind of so-so? Were there parts that you enjoyed and other parts you didn't enjoy? Do you wish you had picked a different book, or were you pleasantly surprised? Anyway, you don't need to write a novel. I'm just curious what you thought. You'll submit that and then you're done. You would have checked in. So next part is to complete the essential questions. This is our very last set of essential questions, and then to do the navigating the story. So let's go to the classwork section. Let's look at navigating the story first, and then I'll talk through the essential questions. So navigating the story, you are officially turning it in. It is due Friday at 8:00. It is ultimately, you'll notice it's ultimately out of 40 points because each part is going to be its own grade. So each one will be worth 10 points. I'll likely end up just sticking it in the grade book as out of a 40-point thing so you can see. I don't know. What do you think? Would you like all the 40 points to just be in the grade book, or would you rather have part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 be, would you prefer it to all be separate? If I do it all separate, then I don't know. You just tell me what you think. You want it all separated out, or do you want it together? Let me know. Let me know by Friday. So let's click here. So we have our exposition rising action. Some of you guys are finishing up the turning point this week because I know that your book didn't really get to a point where it's sort of resolved until later on, like more towards the very last part of your book. So some people are finishing this up this week, and that's fine. The other thing you're finishing up is resolution. So first question is, what loose ends are tied up? So what are things that you needed answers to, that you need some sort of resolution to, that did get resolved? Second question is, what loose ends, if any, there might not have been any of these, but are there any loose ends that didn't get tied up for you, that have been left untied, that you're like, I had a question about this and the author did not answer it and I need resolution? Third one, how are the characters affected by all the change that's happened over the course of the story? So think about their journey, the journey that they've taken. How have they been affected by everything? How have they maybe changed from the beginning of the book towards the end? So think of events, people that they've come into contact with that may have kind of changed them over time. And then how do you see life going on for your main characters? Just focus on your very main characters. How do you see life going on? So if you could kind of predict, like, if the story continued a little bit, how's life going on, or maybe not going on for our main characters. So explain that aspect of it. I don't need a novel there, but adequately answer it. And that should be it for this. If you have questions about any of these questions, let me know. You will turn it in by Friday at 8:00, so I can grade it. So again, each part is worth 10 points, so I can actually put it on a rubric scale. Tell me by Friday, would you rather have each of these parts in the gradebook as a separate grade? So part 1 would be a grade, part 2 would be a grade, or would you rather just have it all bundled up together? You let me know. Either way, when I go in here and what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a rubric. Let's see. I should be able to do that. Yeah. So when I make a rubric, I'm going to set up all 4 parts, so you'll be able to see exactly how you did for each part. So in Classroom, it's going to be out of 40 points, but for the grade book, I can either put whatever Classroom says, or I can put it out of 10, each part out of 10 points. I can break it up. So let me know your opinion on that. Just send me an email or pop in the chat and be like, hey, I saw you wanted our opinion about how you're going to grade navigating the story. I want all the grades separate, or I think it should just all be in the grade book, all bundled together. Just let me know what you think. I'll go with the majority. So however many people end up telling me how they want it in the grade book is how we'll do it. How about that? All right. So, navigating the story. Okay. So back to our week at a glance. So we talked about navigating the story. Let's jump to essential questions. This will be the lengthiest part of our video here. First, so you know, if you look at this assignment, there is a rubric attached to it. This is the same rubric that is linked in here, but this is how you get graded. I just click on the rubric so you know how you did. So this is your feedback. So if you get an 8, the best way to figure out is what an 8 is clicking on the rubric and seeing it. And then if you look at the 9 and 10, you can see what you need to do better in order to get those higher scores. If you want even more specific feedback for your specific answer, let me know. You guys should have learned from last week with the essential questions number 3. I went in and I commented on people's things, and then I also added highlights. I highlighted questions that you failed to answer. So some people were answering a little bit of the question and leaving the rest, they just moved on. So I would highlight stuff if you didn't fully answer those questions. So you know that you needed to go back and work on that. Okay, so back to essential questions number 4. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this. I think you guys are fairly self-sufficient enough that you can figure this out. And I know I'm only talking to my B-Day people, so I'm going to skip some of these because it doesn't apply to you. We'll just talk to you guys about the books that I know you guys are doing. So Animal Farm, the very first question is going to ask you about the very last passage that happens, and this idea that pigs are starting to sound like men and we can't tell the difference between them. The only thing that I really feel like you might need clarification on is this last question, where it's going to ask, can you think of any instances personally or in society or in history where this has happened or is currently happening, like you see this happening now? And so this is more relating to situations in which you have people or organizations or systems of government or whatever it is, whether it's individual people or groups of people or communities of people that are likely the types of people that stand up for some cause that they believe in, or maybe they're against something, right? Or they say, I will never be like this person or this group or whatever it is. And then over time, things kind of, you notice like, hey, you have essentially become the person or the organization or this group that you said that you were against or that you would never become. And here we are, so this idea of, the pigs started out as pigs and they were very much their animals and they were like, anti 2 feet things, right? And over time, the pigs couldn't tell the difference between the pigs and the men that they set out to be against, right? So they ended up becoming very much like them. So anyway, so sort of similar situations to that. The second question is looking at when this Animal Farm was first published and how it was interpreted, and very specifically. And then it's going to kind of ask if Animal Farm has more statements than just the very time specific ones that it kind of the content ones that it is very much a rejection of communism is what it was seen as, and is that the only thing that we see happening in Animal Farm? Could you extend it outwards beyond just Russian Revolution and stuff? And the third one is going to look at this idea of Animal Farm being full of all sorts of different, these big ideas and these lessons that we can learn, specifically about the topics of like whether or not it's important to make sure that everyone is educated, like all people are educated, not just some people. This idea that it's important to understand and know your history, why that might be important versus not knowing history and not recognizing when things are repeated. The idea of idealist thought. So idealist thought, this, you're thinking of the ideal and what could be, not necessarily the realistic. This is, the more realistic ideas of how this could play out. And then class structure, this hierarchical class structure. And then it's going to ask like how any of these things might have changed or broadened your worldview of the way you see the world, or how you see things happening in our world, or whatever. So for Audacity, first question is really looking at any sort of themes or universal ideas or lessons that are really standing out to you. And then focusing on one that you feel like you see happening in the book and how it's developed over the course of the book, and just discussing that. Second one is looking at Claire as a person, how she's changed throughout our story. So don't only focus on internal changes, like consider external ones as well. So how has Claire and her environment changed over the course of the story? How has she developed? So it's going to ask you to focus on the beginning, how she's presented to us in the beginning of the book, events and people that have kind of affected her and resulted in some change in her throughout the middle, and then where we see Claire and now at the end of her journey. And then the very last question is focused on big topics from the text. So there are a ton of different ideas that are presented in Audacity, but some of the big ones are education, immigration, social class issues, gender equality, workers' rights, and labor-related issues, and then the right to organize and protest. So thinking about those things, what are some lessons that you've personally taken away that regard any of those big topics? Or there might be another topic that you really noticed that kept coming up that stood out to you, and that's fine. And then again, the same sort of question that the Animal Farm people are having to ask is, how has the novel changed or broadened your worldview about any of these topics, or one topic in particular, and then why or why not? We're going to skip Billy Creekmore because that's not you guys. So last, let's look at The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. The first question is looking at this idea that Henrietta Lacks, the way that the story is written, the way that Rebecca Skloot presents this book, is not done chronologically. She doesn't start at the very beginning necessarily and then just tell you all the way up until the current day. She goes back and forth between her present day and the past. And so the book is, which I'm sure you've already noticed, the book is chunked into 3 big sections. The first is life, and then death, and then immortality. So what I want you to do is think about how how the story might have been different if it had just been told chronologically to you. And then could you think of any sort of instances with books you've read or movies that you've watched where things are not told chronologically? And are there positives to that? Are there negatives to that? Can you list those? The most recent example I thought of, if you've seen Little Women came out, the newest adaptation of the book. It came out at Christmas. And so in the past, all of the movies that have been done for the book Little Women have always been done chronologically. They've always started the beginning just like the story and end just like the story. They do it in the same order as the book. And this new adaptation that came out was not done that way. It was not done chronologically. And so it kind of skips around a little bit. And it had a very interesting effect and entirely changed the way that you experience the story. And so think about some of the positives of that. I think some of the negatives. The second one, Mike Rogers published an article in Rolling Stone in 1976 that discussed Henrietta, and it did it through the lens of race, really, about it being a race issue. Okay, so there wasn't so much this topic of like the idea of privacy and was it morally correct that somebody did this or whatever. It was more looking at it through a racial lens. So think about how this was published in 1976, which is important to remember, and Henrietta died in 1951. So think about how would the public have maybe interpreted things differently if the article had been published in 1951 versus 1976. And how might any of this be different from the way that you're interpreting her story today in 2020? And then how do you think Henrietta's experiences with the medical system could have been different had she been a white woman? And then what about Elsie's fate as well? Like, would it have been different had she been a white woman? So, like obviously, in 1951 especially, things are going to be very different, or were very different, along racial. We had like very large racial divides. I mean, that being said, obviously in 2020 in the United States, we still have lots of issues, lots of racial issues that we still need to work out. But obviously thinking about the difference between, if this article that focused on this racial aspect had been printed in 1951, that's kind of a different story than 1976. Those are two very different time periods and lots of different things were happening. And to think of like when the civil rights movement happened, that's things are just starting to get geared in 1951, really get going. And by 1976, obviously we're not like in the throes of the civil rights movement, but we're still being affected by it. So anyway, so all of those things to say, be thinking about kind of those time differences and how things might have been different. And then our last question is looking at this idea of, when you go to the doctor, if you have something removed, for example, like you lose ownership of that in a way, or do you lose ownership of that? Like if somebody removes something from you, that's still your tissue, right? So think about this idea of like if you had discovered that something that was just routinely removed from your body at some point in the past ended up significantly benefiting science and research, would you feel that you would need to be compensated? And then ultimately, what do you think is more important? Do you think it's more important for someone to have personal rights over their own tissues? So like, let's say I had a mole removed and it was cancerous, and then the doctor didn't tell me this, but later on they used this for scientific research and then it benefited everyone. Do you feel it's more important that I should have had a say in that, whether someone got to use part of my body essentially? Or do you think it's more important that you just waive somebody's personal rights because at the end of the day, contributing to science and research for the benefit of all humankind is more important? So which one do you think is more important? And make sure you explain why you think that. And I think that's it. So you guys didn't do Watership Down. So those are your big three. If you have any, if you need more clarifying explanation for any of those questions, let me know. It's been really interesting to read what you guys have to say. You guys have been, lots of really interesting insight to some of your books. Some of you guys are coming up with making connections that I wouldn't have personally made myself, but have been really interesting to read. So thank you for all of your ideas. They've been great to read. So your essential questions number 4, you'll notice deadline is Friday at 8:00 in the morning. So make sure you get it in. One of these, so I'll probably grade your essential questions first. I'll grade those on Friday, so I can get those in the grade book and give you feedback right away. Navigating the story, I need to figure out obviously how I'm going to put that in the grade book, whether I'm going to do separate grades for each part or just one big grade. So again, tell me what you want, and I'll go with the majority. But I'll probably end up grading those for next week. And then that will go in, and I'll give you guys some feedback for that. So I can't grade both of these. I can't turn out everybody's assignments for both of those in one day. So I'll probably save navigating the story to grade for the next week once I hear back from you guys about how you want that to ultimately go in the grade book. So very last thing I want to talk about, if you go to digital learning or the Week at a Glance, the really big thing I will continue to keep linked in the Week at a Glance slideshow is this regrade, reassess submission form. So if you click on that, it's going to send you to this form. If you have anything that you need regraded, especially since we are not seeing each other in person anymore, and I really need to be able to keep good records of who has finished what needs regraded, stuff like that. Think of this as you're physically telling me, hey, I need something regraded. So tell me your class period. Tell me what the assignment is that needs to be graded, the actual name of it. If it's something that's in Google Classroom already and you turned it in, all you really need to do is just tell me what the assignment is. If it's something that's in your own Google Doc or like a Google Sheet or whatever it is, you can add the file. And then if there's anything extra you need to let me know, that's fine. So I'll show you what it looks like on my end. When you guys submit this stuff, this is what it looks like to me. I see the time that you submitted it, who you are, class period, what the assignment is, and then some people are linking stuff in, right? So what I'm doing is when these things come in, I make a note of when I regraded it and what time, and then I highlight it green so I know that I did it, and then I put it in the grade book and all those things. So I am grading in the order in which you guys submit these things. So the sooner you submit it, the sooner I can grade it. Obviously, I don't want you rushing through stuff and giving me not very good revised work. So make sure that you're taking your time on it and that it's good work. But if 10 other people beat you to it, you essentially have to wait your turn in line to get stuff regraded. So the sooner you can do it, the sooner I can grade it, put the grade in the grade book, give you some feedback, all of that. And then I'll make, really great notes so I know that I graded stuff or whatever. And then you'll see the grade change in, if it's a classroom assignment, or whatever, you'll see that, which pretty much everything is. You'll see the grade change in there, and it'll get pushed back to you. And then you'll also see the grade change in the grade book. So I think that's it. Let me know if you have questions. If you have questions about anything, let me know. Friday, the last thing for Friday, I will link the Google Meet link in there. Because of last week, I had the Google Meet, the video thing or whatever, up all day, and there was a lot of time where nobody was there. So I'm gonna have the Google Meet up from specifically 11 to 1 o'clock, just my office hours. So the Google Meet link will go up at 11. So if you want to meet with me, you can, or if you just want to say hi, you can pop in, and then it'll close at 1. So if you have questions, that's the time to ask those questions or check in or whatever. And I'll see you guys then. hopefully I'll see some of you guys then. It was good seeing some of you guys last Friday. So anyway, I think that's it. That should be it. Okay, so I will maybe chat with you guys on Friday. If you have questions, let me know. I'll talk to you guys later.